In 2009, our state started a state longitudinal database system. It was federally designed and federally funded, and we still have it today, and all the children are being tracked by the state longitudinal database system. I would like to hear from each of you. What are your feelings about this? Do you think parents should have the right to opt out if they don't feel comfortable with their child's personal information going into that system without their consent?
I tend to agree with you. I do believe the information is very important for parents and students to have, and sometimes for educators to know how to address students as they move into their classrooms. But I do not believe it should be published in any way, shape, or form. And we have been fighting against that. Most of our school board agrees to that. We are trying desperately. Like I said, we had an attorney for our state superintendent for a year or so, and mainly what he saw was published data, and we're trying really hard. Sid Dixon, who is up for state superintendent right now, she spent a lot of time on the Hill this year, and we've tried to have the board spend a lot of time on the Hill convincing our legislators that they need to listen to teachers, to district people, to us, and make sure that we're not putting students in a bad position because we're publishing data on them. I certainly don't believe any data on students should be published.
I also do not like the state longitudinal data system. First of all, it should have never been started. We should have pushed back from the very beginning. That came down through the State Fiscal Stabilization Fund that went to the governor's office, and then also came down through a series of grants that the federal government was offering. We didn't win all of that money, but we did, however, win a huge amount of money through the state fiscal not win, but received a huge amount of money through the state fiscal stabilization fund. I think we're up to about $15 million just for the state fiscal, or for the state longitudinal data system. The part that's concerning to me is that the state longitudinal data system has been created so that information can be shared, not just from student up to the state level, but from agency to agency and from state to state. That is how the federal government asked us to create this system. And there's words thrown out like de-identified information, or not de-identified, sorry, de-identified information, I can't think of the other one. But what this is just data points where they put all the data together, and then when it gets up to the level that it is, they can then disaggregate the data. And data analysts know that if you isolate different data points, you can very clearly get down to single student level data. And I think that's a huge problem. There are not proper protections in place to protect student data. I've been working with you and other people to try to create bills that will protect student privacy, because good intentions aren't always good enough, and we need to make sure that the data is protected and not be collected. And I absolutely believe that parents should be able to opt out of that data system. Currently, we are told that we cannot opt out of that data system.
I'll be brief. I share the same concerns, and I think our children's data is really sacrosanct. It should not be sold. It shouldn't be published. You know, I'll just say one additional comment. This is, I think, related to other issues. We have technology, we have tests, we have the SAGE test. There is promise in using things like computer adaptive testing and technology in schools, but only if it's being used by teachers for the purpose of helping our kids learn better. And when we do that, we have to be extremely careful about it. And I think a lot of legitimate concerns have been raised about the database, about the administration of SAGE, for example, with AIR, the company that administers it. These are real concerns that have to be addressed. And there's no getting out of technology, but I think the state board has to be extremely careful. They have to have oversight. I know that some of the contracts, for example, that may have been entered at different points, were not reviewed probably as carefully as they should have been. And there's been a lot of effort to tighten that down. But I think a lot of the concerns have been raised show that a lot more effort is needed. So I would make the same commitment I think I've heard here.
Thank you.